The studio smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet, and I hated how familiar it felt. My headphones were already pinching, the mic too close to my mouth, and the studio clock glared red, 10:03 p.m. I caught Lexi's look through the glass, that silent "please don't wing it again tonight" warning. I cracked my knuckles near the mic and leaned in anyway. "Welcome back to City Pulse FM," I said, my voice smooth, low, practiced. Where the streets talk and I mostly interrupt them. The comment board blinked to life. Tonight's topic was supposed to be easy, relationships that changed your life. I should have stuck to it. But something in me, restless, loud, a little cracked open, spoke before I had a chance to think. "You ever look at someone," I said slowly, spinning in my chair, "and wonder if opening your door to them that night was the biggest mistake you ever made?" Lexi jerked upright behind the glass. "I mean, love isn't always soft," I went on, half laughing. "Sometimes it's silent resentment and dishes that never get washed. Sometimes it's living with someone who forgot who you were before they shrunk you down." The chat lit up. She's not holding back tonight. Is she talking about Travis? Ouch, this one's gonna leave a mark. I laughed, but it cracked at the edges. "Relax, people, just a thought experiment," I added, trying to spin it. "We're vibing, that's all." But I heard it in my own voice, that wobble, that edge of something real. Lexi hovered over the mute button. She didn't press it. I kept talking. I had to. Because if I stopped, the silence would tell the truth I didn't want to face. I rambled about fatigue, about how trust wears thin over time, about loving someone who never argues, who just absorbs. "I guess," I said softer now, "I'd go back, not to leave him, just to choose a different door that night." Silence. Real, uncomfortable silence. Then I snapped back in. "Anyway," I said brightly, "call in with your own disasters." The comments kept flooding in. That hit deep. "Travis deserves better. She sounds like she's unraveling." I looked up and saw a shape in the hallway behind me. Travis, coffee in hand, frozen. He'd come to surprise me. I didn't stop talking. He didn't come in. He turned and left without a word, vanishing like he'd rehearsed it. I finished the show. I made jokes. I never said his name, but the mic, still warm from my voice, felt cold in my hands. If you're still here, then yeah, you heard what I probably should have kept off the air. So get comfortable. This is just the beginning. Go ahead and hit like, subscribe if you want to hear how the rest of this mess unfolds. And leave a comment. Seriously, what would you have done if you were me? Said it out loud, or stayed quiet? I woke up to silence. Not the comforting kind. The kind that makes your skin itch. No kettle whistling. No soft clatter of Travis sketching at the kitchen table. Just a sharp, ringing quiet that made my apartment feel suddenly unfamiliar. I checked the hook by the door. His keys weren't there. Weird. The closet was open just a crack. His hoodie still hung there. His shoes were lined up neatly, just like always. But his charger, gone. I opened my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Then I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Someone had clipped my segment. Just the worst part, of course. 20 seconds, stripped of any context. My voice, raw and sharp, echoed from the video captioned in bold. "If I could go back, I'd choose a different door." Underneath, "This is your queen? Travis deserves better. Period." My stomach dropped. Lexi was calling. I let it ring. A few seconds later, "We need a damage control plan, before 5. I stared at that message, then set the phone down and walked to the window. The city looked the same, which felt unfair. I called Travis. Voicemail. Called again. Straight to voicemail. On the third try, the line didn't even ring. I sat on the bed, clutching my phone like a lifeline. I typed out, "Where are you?" Deleted it. Typed again. "We need to talk." Deleted that too. Finally I wrote, "You okay?" Sent. Nothing. I checked Twitter. My name was trending. There were screen grabs of old photos, us on vacation, laughing, my head on his shoulder. Comments flooded in. He was always too quiet for her. Loud women think silence is passive. It's survival. I felt like I was drowning in my own voice. Words I couldn't unsay. Words I'd used to fill the air and avoid the truth. By afternoon, Lexi was pounding on my door. "You're trending," she said as I opened it. "And not the good kind." I let her in without a word. She sat on my couch like it belonged to her. "You heard from him?" she asked. I shook my head. "No note? No call? Nothing?" "Nothing," I repeated. She looked at me, not angry, not pitying, just processing. "You made him a punchline in your own story," she said. "And now the room's quiet, and you don't know what to do with it." I didn't argue. The silence wrapped around us again, not empty, not accusing, just there, like him. Lexi dragged me out of the apartment like I was a half-sleeping house cat and the building was on fire. "No hoodie," she said, yanking it off my head. "You look like someone who just went viral for all the wrong reasons." "Oh, wait." I didn't fight her. What was the point? We ended up in a cafe 2 blocks from the station, not close enough to be familiar, not far enough to feel safe. 2 baristas glanced at me, then at each other. One whispered something and laughed. I pretended not to notice. Lexi ordered for both of us. I sank into a window seat, watching raindrops crawl across the glass like they were trying to get out of the day, too. She slid the coffee across the table. "Drink, then listen." I sipped. It tasted like dirt and regret. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You need to stop acting like this is happening to you. You aimed the mic at your own relationship and pulled the trigger, in high definition." "I didn't mean it like that," I muttered. "Yes, you did." I flinched. She nodded toward the barista's phone. "You've seen the clip. You've read the comments. You lit the fuse and now you're shocked it burned the house." "I didn't think he'd actually leave," I whispered. "That's the problem. You thought he'd always stay, that you could throw fire and he'd just hold the hose." Her words stung because they weren't wrong. Another comment popped up on my feed. "She treats him like a silent backdrop, glad he finally walked away." I turned my phone face down. Lexi took a long sip. "I've worked with you for 5 years. You're brilliant, fearless, sharp as hell. But sometimes, Mariah," her voice softened, "sometimes you cut people just to prove your blade still works." I stared out the window. A guy passed by in a Travis-style coat, and my chest tightened for no reason. "I didn't mean to hurt him," I said. "But you did." I thought he knew it was just the show. Lexi gave me a look I couldn't meet. "I don't think you even know when you're performing anymore." Silence fell between us. But this one felt earned, like we both needed to hear what didn't get said. Then she added softer, "He was never invisible. You just talked so much. He faded into the backdrop." I clenched the cup. What if it's too late? She leaned back. "Then don't fix the performance. Fix the script." I didn't answer. I just watched the city blur through glass and wondered if I even remembered how to write the kind of story that wasn't about me. I hadn't driven in months. Travis was always the driver, calm, measured, the guy who double-checked Google Maps even for places he already knew. But today, I drove like I wanted the road to forget who I was. His parents' house looked the same. White shutters, dusty wreath on the door. I used to love how predictable it was. Now it made my skin crawl. His mom answered after the second knock. "Mariah," she said. Soft voice, the same one she used when offering tea or quietly judging my shoes. "You look tired." "I've had a weird week," I replied, forcing a smile. She nodded once. "We saw the clip." I looked down at my shoes. "He hasn't been here," she said, saving me the question. "If I hear from him, I'll let him know you stopped by." I murmured something polite and drove off, gripping the wheel like it owed me answers. I didn't know where I was going. Brooklyn stretched out in all directions, but every street felt like a dead end. Every song on the radio sounded like an accusation. By the time I got home, there were 43 unread emails. Lexi had forwarded one from the station. Subject: urgent, brand repositioning. Translation: sponsors were nervous, the network was anxious, and I had about a 48-hour window to either apologize or combust. I opened the PR draft they'd attached. It started. In a moment of vulnerability, I misspoke. I didn't read the rest, just deleted the file. Then I did something reckless. I searched for Travis's name. Not on Facebook. That would be too obvious. I checked the feed of one of his closest friends, the artsy one with all the out-of-focus photos. And there he was, blurry but unmistakable, standing in a small gallery, a drink in hand, laughing. The caption read, "Glad to see this one back in town." He was here, in the city, back, and he hadn't called. I dropped my phone on the table like it burned. My fingers were still buzzing when Lexi called again. "Heard from him?" she asked. "Just saw a post," I said. "He's in town." "Did he reach out?" "No." A beat of silence. "You sure this isn't just about getting him back for the camera?" I blinked. "You think I'm trying to spin it?" "I think you're used to telling stories. This time, maybe just try telling the truth." That landed somewhere deep. After the call, I stood in the doorway for a long time, staring out at a city that suddenly didn't feel like mine. Then I opened a new note on my phone. Title: What I Never Said When He Was Still Listening. And for the first time, I didn't write for a listener. I wrote for the silence. The blinking cursor stared at me like it knew more than I did. I'd opened and closed that blank document at least a dozen times. Every version of the first sentence sounded like damage control, too careful, too clean, too late. So I did something different. I turned on my front-facing camera. Natural light, no filter, no ring light. Just me. Unbrushed hair, yesterday's hoodie, the kind of face people only see when they live with you long enough to forget to lie. I hit record. "My name is Mariah Reynolds," I began, my voice low. "And this time, I'm not performing, I'm just speaking." It poured out of me, not in perfect sound bites, not for sympathy, just real. I talked about how easy it is to confuse honesty with cruelty, how I used my voice like armor, then sharpened it into a weapon, how I turned someone I loved into background noise because I was scared of being quiet. "I thought I was the strong one," I said. Turns out, the strongest person in the room was the one who never raised their voice. When I finished, I didn't watch it back, didn't edit it. I just uploaded it with the caption, "Sometimes silence isn't an absence. It's an answer you refuse to hear." I threw the phone on the couch and went for a walk. 2 blocks, then 3. When I came back, the video had already passed 50,000 views. Comments poured in. "You sound like you finally stopped talking long enough to listen." That hit harder than anything she ever said on air. Been there, left too. But the one message that mattered didn't come publicly. Lexi forwarded me a screenshot from a mutual friend. Travis had been seen at a gallery again, solo, calm, and back in town. She called 2 minutes later. "You ready to do something with this?" "Like what?" I asked. "A night, live, not a broadcast, a space." My heart sped up. "You want me to perform again?" "No, I want you to show up, as a person." She pitched the idea, a small event, invite only, no live stream, no edits, just voices, conversations, and one chair in the back, saved for someone who might or might not show. "If he does," Lexi said, "he'll hear you without a script." I didn't answer right away. Later that night, I stood on my rooftop, the city glowing in streaks and static. For once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. And somewhere in that hush, I realized, maybe this wasn't about him hearing me. Maybe it was about me finally being worth listening to. The venue was a reclaimed warehouse in Red Hook, all exposed brick and raw wood, like the building itself had been stripped down to the bone and left standing out of spite. Lexi called it perfect. I called it terrifying. "You'll be fine," she whispered, adjusting my collar like I was about to testify in court. "You're not hosting. You're showing up." "Comforting," I muttered. Folding chairs lined the space in uneven rows. There was no stage, just a spotlight, a microphone on a stand, and too many strangers staring at me with curious eyes and crossed arms. I scanned the room as people filtered in, a mix of creatives, podcast junkies, a couple of past guests, and a few faces I'd never forget. One was a journalist who once praised my brutal candor. Another was a listener who had sent me a 3-page letter after an episode on loss. Lexi squeezed my hand before I stepped into the light. No music, no branded intro. Just me. "Hi," I said, barely louder than a breath. I used to believe that the most powerful thing about having a voice was using it. I paused. I was wrong. I spoke slowly, carefully. Not because I was afraid, but because I finally understood what it meant to choose words like, "You mean them," not just like "you own them." I talked about Travis, not his name, just the shape of him, the quiet steadiness, the person who listened even when I didn't notice he was listening, and how I had used my voice like floodlights, always on, always burning, how it drowned out the very things I once loved. "I thought filling silence made me strong," I said. "But strength is learning to leave room for someone else to speak." No applause, no shifting in seats, stillness. Then I glanced toward the back, and I saw him, hood down, shoulders squared, hands in his pockets like he wasn't sure whether to fold or fight. Travis. I didn't let my voice shake. Instead, I looked away and finished. "Tonight isn't about fixing what I broke," I said. "It's about learning not to break it again." When I stepped down, the world didn't collapse. It inhaled. Lexi met me by the side wall. "He came," she whispered. "I know," I said. I didn't try to find him in the crowd. I didn't run to explain. For once, I let the moment sit untouched. If he wanted to speak, really speak, he'd know where to find me, and if he didn't, I'd still be here. No mic, no mask, just me. The door shut behind me with a solid finality, like the city had exhaled and left me outside of it. The alley behind the venue was lit by a single flickering street lamp, casting long, broken shadows across the cracked pavement. I stood there alone, the air cool and metallic, my breath curling into the dark. And then I heard footsteps. Travis stepped out from behind the loading ramp. No drama, no urgency. Just him, hoodie down, hands in his coat, the same quiet presence that used to fill a room without trying. He held a paper coffee cup in one hand. "You still drink oat milk?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." He handed it to me like we were meeting for the first time again, like maybe this time we'd both be more careful. Neither of us sat. Neither of us moved toward the other. We just stood, half lit by a dying lamp, like characters between acts. "You didn't think I'd come," he said. "No," I admitted. "I hoped, but I didn't build the whole thing around that hope." "That's why I came." A long pause stretched between us. This one wasn't heavy. It wasn't hostile. It just was. The kind of silence that doesn't press, doesn't accuse, just listens. "You didn't perform tonight," he said after a while. "I didn't want to." That was new. He sipped from his own cup, watching steam rise into the night. "I've never seen you hesitate before," he added. I was scared if I said the wrong thing again, it would erase whatever chance I had left. He looked over at me then, not angry, not sad, just present. "I didn't come to give you another chance," he said. "I just wanted to see if you knew the difference between being loud and being real." I didn't answer. Not yet. Then I asked, softly, "What did you hear back there?" He thought for a second. "For the first time, I didn't hear someone asking to be seen. I heard someone finally seeing. I swallowed. Does that change anything? It changes whether I walk away feeling like I was invisible. Another beat, another breath. I'm not coming back, he said. Not tonight, maybe not at all. I know. But I wanted you to know I heard you. He turned then, walking down the alley slow and steady, like nothing was chasing him anymore. I didn't call after him. I didn't beg. For once, I let the silence hold what didn't need to be said. I stayed in that alley long after Travis walked away. Not because I expected him to turn around, but because I didn't know what to do with myself now that I'd finally shut up. Then I heard him again. Same footsteps. Same calm rhythm. He came back holding a new cup. I hadn't even seen where he got it. I didn't think you'd still be here, he said. I didn't think you would be. He held out the coffee. Still oat milk? I took it. Yeah. We stood there under the dim light, steam rising from our cups like two nervous signals trying to reach each other through bad weather. You really didn't think I'd come tonight? He asked. No, I said. I hoped, but I didn't count on it. He leaned back against the brick wall, the same way he used to lean against the kitchen counter when he didn't want to escalate a fight. I didn't clap, he said. I noticed. I didn't leave either. That hit harder than it should have. I didn't go up there to get you back, I said. I went up there because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't say the truth out loud, even once. He nodded, but didn't respond right away. Then, softly, you looked different tonight. How? Like you weren't aiming your voice at anyone, just letting it exist. I exhaled slowly. I've spent years filling rooms with sound. It never made me feel less alone. I know, he said. That was the loneliest part. I took a step closer, not enough to reach him, just enough that we could feel the same pocket of cold air. You think we're done? I asked. He didn't flinch. I think we were done with what didn't work. What comes after, I don't know yet. I looked down at my coffee, at the swirl of foam and shadow inside the lid. I don't want to rush into fixing something just because I hate being broken, I said. Good, he replied, because I'm not here to be fixed. We stood there like that, in the damp quiet of the alley, the city alive around us but not pushing in. I'm not saying yes, he added, but I'm not saying no. I nodded. I'll take not no. He smiled, small, tired, but real. As he turned to leave again, I called after him. You didn't ask me why I stayed. He paused, looked back. Why did you? Because for once the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. He nodded. Then he walked off into the dark, and I stayed behind. Not because I was waiting, because I was okay being still. The studio hadn't changed. Same flickering ceiling panel, same half-broken swivel chair, same faint hum behind the glass that used to feel like home and now sounded like static. But something in me was different. Lexi stood beside me, adjusting mic levels like she had for the last 5 years. But today, she didn't touch the intro jingle. No music, she said. No catchphrase, just voice. I nodded. Truer, not louder. She smiled. Exactly. We were relaunching the show. A new name, new tone, new purpose, City Pulse voices. No more monologues dressed as truth bombs. No more pretending sarcasm was in sight. Now it was just people, real ones, with real stories. Our guests weren't influencers or headline chasers. They were nurses, artists, parents, grief counselors, people who had lived through something and wanted to say it out loud, sometimes for the first time. Tia Han joined us on air, calm, steady, the kind of presence that made silence feel safe. She didn't fill space, she invited it to settle. The wall behind the mic had a new mural. Bold white letters on charcoal paint. Don't speak louder, speak truer. The first episode dropped on a Tuesday. I didn't check comments. I didn't watch the numbers. I walked 3 miles through Prospect Park, watched a group of kids race fallen leaves, and bought myself a coffee without looking at my phone once. That night, Lexi texted me a screenshot. Top streamed episode in network history. And not because it was viral, not because it was scandalous, because it was human. Sam Radin, my former co-host turned online heckler, went live later that week with a bitter rant about how soft podcasting had become. No one shared it. No one replied. He was loud, but irrelevant. Finally. As I left the studio one night, Lexi caught me at the door. "You feel that?" she asked. "What?" "That weird little vibration in your chest that doesn't feel like panic anymore?" I smiled. "Yeah." "It's peace," she said. "Takes getting used to." We stepped out into the night. The city buzzed in its usual messy rhythm, cabs, street vendors, laughter 2 blocks away. I didn't rush to get home. I just stood on the corner a moment longer than I needed to, feeling the air, the light, the new quiet inside me. Not silence, just a voice that didn't need to be heard to matter. It was Thursday night when he knocked. No text, no warning, just that soft, steady knock I used to hear when he forgot his keys or brought takeout. I opened the door slowly, expecting nothing. There he was, Travis, holding 2 paper cups, steam curling upward like they had something to say before we did. "I figured," he said. "You still take oat milk." I nodded, stepping aside without a word. He walked in like someone who didn't quite belong anymore but wasn't unwelcome either. The apartment was dim, lit only by a floor lamp and whatever was left of the setting sun. A record spun silently. I hadn't even noticed it stopped. We sat on the floor, backs against the couch. No distance, no closeness, just space. He handed me the cup, then reached into his bag and pulled out a sketch pad. "I've been working on a new piece," he said, "for the installation." He flipped to a page, shapes, lines, a suspended orb with light bleeding out of it, like it had something trapped inside. Beneath it, a speaker. "It's called pause," he said. "People walk in, stand under the sound, and just listen." "To what?" I asked. "Recorded voices, people talking about what they never said when it mattered." I stared at the sketch, my fingers warming around the coffee cup. "You want me to record something?" He didn't look at me. "You already did." We sat in silence again, but not the kind that builds up pressure, the kind that lets it out. "I'm not here to rewrite us," I said. "I don't even know what we are right now." "You don't have to know," he said. "Not everything needs a definition to matter." I looked over at him. He looked better, clear-eyed, more grounded, like someone who had stopped bleeding and started building again. "You came back," I said, "for now." "And after now?" He shrugged. "Let's just sit here, see what the quiet says." I didn't press. The city murmured outside, tires on wet pavement, someone laughing on a fire escape, a dog barking 2 buildings over. It all felt softer somehow. Or maybe I was just less sharp. He didn't reach for my hand, but he placed his beside mine. Close, still, present. For once, I didn't fill the space between us with words. I let it be. An evening without a microphone, an ending without punctuation, and maybe a beginning that didn't need one.